Hey guys, Lou here. Welcome back to Acorn Hill. Welcome back to the channel. For those of you who are just joining us on the channel, welcome. This is Acorn Hill. It's all about gardening at this time because the spring has sprung here in North Carolina, and there's a few things that I wanted to share with you today. There's a lot of different blooms and good plants that I prepared for and planted back in the fall and even in the winter. And there's a few things that I wanted to make mention and focus and highlight on. What you're seeing right now are the clematis that I got from Walmart. These are on sale when I got them last year. They were mid-summer. They really look tattered and looks like they were just a bunch of twigs that are about to be chucked out into the skip. And I asked the manager if I could get a good price on them. I really got them for less than $10 for each bush. These clematis, I don't know what the name of them. I don't know what whether they're early season or mid-season. I think they're early season because they are now springing back to life in April. And you can take a look at the blooms that we got from them. When I planted them under this pergola, I made sure that the hole is deep, twice the depth of the actual can that I got. And these cans were about a gallon per can. At that time, I thought that I was paying a little bit more for $7 for each 1 gallon can because pretty much they're all dirt and there's not much plant in them. But the root ball of these plants are what I was after. I dug the hole twice the size of and twice the depth of that can. Made sure there's a lot of leaf mold, coarse compost, bone meal, blood meal, and all-purpose fertilizer right on the bottom of that hole. These are hungry little plants, and so they need all the TLC that they could get from us. If you come to think of it, they don't really require much. You just need to dig up a hole that's deep enough to protect its roots. Give it all the food that it wants because they like having a good show based on the amount of food that we provide for them. To me, it's a win-win. So now, this is what we have: plump bulbs, plump buds, and you get to see that the growth has now reached the top of this 6-foot pergola that I built last year. All these plumping buds and all the emerging leaves are caused by the amount of food that I put in the bottom of the hole. Over time, they will also provide long-term feed for these plants for the rest of the growing season. Colors are great. They're saturated. The petals are healthy. They are big. They've actually gotten wider and bigger compared to the ones that we had from the picture on the pot. I'm doing something very unusual here. I wanted this to open right before our eyes, and that's why I had to pinch the tip of those petals a little bit. Always fascinated by plants that have good color, good structure. Even the center of that plant really looks nice with all those antlers and the stigma and the little hairy structures that are protruding from the center of these flowers. Really a good plant to have. I highly encourage you guys to get a hold of as much and as different types of clematis that you could put either on a structure like the pergola that we have, or just allowing them to ramble around and climb on top of just even a green bush and a shrub. There are 2 of them here, and the first one was the pink striped one, the variegated kind, and this is the blue, royal to deep blue blossoms that are also about to show. There is a total of 6 individual plants that I placed on both pergola. On this pergola, I've got 3 growing, and as you can see, the base of the pergola, apart from the clematis, has all of these other plants and perennials. These tendrils are the ones that provide clinging and holding of these vines onto the structure and even onto the vine itself. They get very sturdy, and all these convolutions on the tendrils provide a good grip for this plant to really cling on to whatever structure it's trying to climb up on. Can't believe that all these, pardon the focus here, but I can't believe all these buds come from one singular plant. They are all coming from this variegated pink and purple clematis that we got. Out of curiosity as well, just so you know, now look at that plump bud. Isn't that great? And I'm just holding it with my rough hands. I'm holding that bud just to show you how big this bud is and how big the blossom and the flower is going to be, which when I measured was 6 inches across. And again, to recap, what clematis needs is a deep planting hole, a lot of organic matter for it to feed on, a layer of thick mulch around the root ball, and a sturdy vertical climbing structure, and all we need to do is sit back and watch it take off. The next plant I wanted to show you guys that's really taking off and blooming in the garden right now are the German bearded irises that we have collected over the years. These irises have been given to us by a previous client of mine whose spouse happens to be the president of our county's garden club. If you want a plant in the garden that is highly reliable, has bold foliage and color, and also gives you that very unique structural and architectural flower, then the German bearded iris is something that you need to consider. German bearded irises grow from rhizomes. They are similar to ginger root, and the interesting thing about them, making them easy to care for, is that they're the only type of plant that I know that requires baking in the sun, and the more they bake in the sun, the more they will produce flowers for the following year. They don't require any special growing medium or growing soil. They're very easy to care for. They are superficially rooted. What I do is I place the rhizome on top of a hill, allow them and the roots to get situated, allow the sun to bake it, and in North Carolina we have plenty of that, which the following year you will be rewarded with these beautiful blooms. Now, the other type of iris that we grow out on the landscape come from bulbs. Unlike the German bearded iris that come from rhizomes, we have Dutch irises. Dutch irises have orchid-like flowers with silky petals. These irises grow from teardrop-shaped bulbs that are planted in the fall. One of the best parts about these long-lasting blooms is that they can grow and perform best when they are planted in full sun, but they can also grow in some part shade areas. They require well-draining soil, and if you know me already by now, anything bulbs, I put a good heaping teaspoon to a tablespoon of bone meal in the bottom of the planting hole. These Dutch irises that I have are only for about a dozen that I planted in a small drift right on the bottom of this pergola. These are between 18 to 24 inches tall, so they are a perfect height for the middle of a perennial border. What I have are really deep purple with a splash of yellow right on the middle of the lower petals. Now the interior upright petals in these Dutch irises are short, not as tall as the ones that we regularly see on the bearded irises. And because I live in a warmer climate area, the Dutch iris may start producing foliage in the late fall or early winter. When growing conditions are ideal, these Dutch irises will come back to bloom a second year. Now in practice and in my experience, this is the third year that these bulbs have been growing. They look very healthy to me. Really the wonders of what that bone meal can do. As for my experience of late, I've found myself buying more and more of these Dutch irises in the fall because they come in big bags that are pretty cheap and affordable. Another gentle reminder, and a friendly one at that, in caring for these bulbs after they have bloomed is that I don't cut back all the green foliage that the blooms will leave behind. The greenery will again cause the photosynthesis to occur, and the energy formed through photosynthesis will be sent back into the bulb. This is the perfect spot for all these Dutch irises to be planted adjacent to the clematis under this pergola. I call this pergola number 1 from the west side of our garden. One of the things that I failed at in caring for and maintaining this year was our purple sensation alliums. Believe it or not, I have several bulbs of these alliums scattered throughout the property, but only one sadly got into bloom. And this purple sensation could have been a sea of purple planted on a very rich, well draining soil. Did not get to do all of that in the fall and winter, and so I've got this one solitary allium that I still would like to showcase on this video because it is beautiful, it is interesting and unique. We will wait for them to go into seed, and hopefully that seed we could turn into other alliums in the course of the next 2 years. Getting back to the blue clematis that we have under this pergola, check out how big that blossom is. I had to put my hand underneath that blossom just to give you guys an idea of how big this plant has produced these blooms due to the organic matter, the bone meal, the blood meal that we have invested in placing in that double deep hole that we planted all these roots into. It was worth it. Doesn't require too much. Like I said, the plant just wants us to plant it properly and look at all the rewards that we get. And here's one of the many buds that will start popping open and produce more blooms in the coming days. Well, this is what's happening in the garden right now in April. There's a lot of good select blooms that are slowly in succession starting to pop open, starting to show, and I will be sharing with you as we go along all these different blooms and plants that are successfully thriving in our property. If you happen to stumble on the channel again, welcome to Acorn Hill. Currently, it's the gardening season. It's the growing season of the year, and I'm doing all the work outside and willing to share with you what lessons we are learning, things that work for us, things that don't work well. Before I end up, I wanted to show you this creeping phlox that I planted right on the stone steps that we have, and check this thing out as well. I like this brand, this type, because it buries the dead. The new foliage and the new blooms cover the ones that have been blooming for about a week, and so we get 3 different successions of blooms in this one little corner of our stone step leading to the upper garden. Here's hoping you enjoyed some of the plants that I showed in today's video, and if you happen to be watching it and liking what we're showing, click on that like button, share the channel and share the content with your friends, and most importantly, subscribe to Acorn Hill. This is all about appreciating the simple joys of life and appreciating blessings and becoming better stewards of what we are being blessed with. For now, this is your presenter and friend Louie, and we'll see you back here in Acorn Hill. Bye-bye for now.